Hey all, my name is Khrezin. Welcome to another video here. We're going to be doing a quick add-on video guide. I'm going to show you guys how to set up your UI and your add-ons to be kind of like mine. So the first thing that we'll start off with are kind of general UI settings. So these are kind of add-ons that are going to be for your action bars, for your mini map, for your nameplates, for your kind of just your main HUD, the main things that you're looking at all the time. So I get asked a lot, kind of, what add-ons I use, and this is going to be a whole comprehensive list, and I can link them all in the description of the video, right below. But now we're just kind of go over all of the general UI. So we'll start off with Bartender. So Bartender is an add-on that allows you to move around all of your bars and all your buttons to exactly where you want them to be and organize them in kind of a generic kind of way. So everything you're seeing highlighted in green here is something that you can drag around using Bartender. So as kind of a general rule of thumb, you want to have your button locked so you're not accidentally kind of dragging things off of the screen. But you can actually change the padding, which is the spacing between your buttons, so you can make it closer by reducing that number, or you can make them much further apart if you increase the number. So the number that I have stuck with over the years is 2 for padding. So it's not taking up like a ton of the room on the screen, but it's also not like having your abilities like on top of each other, because that's no good either. You can also change the amount of buttons to be less than 12, and you can actually change the amount of rows. So I've got 2 other additional bars over here that hold all kind of my consumables and my extra mounts and trinket buttons and hearthstones, all those kind of interesting toys kind of thing. It's just something extra that I have that most people don't. The majority of the time, most people would just be using like the main bars here, like 1, 2, and 3 on the bottom center of the screen here. So that's pretty much what you'd be seeing there. You can enable and disable up to 10 bars here. So you can have a lot of buttons if you really want them. But usually I stack up 3 bars, 1, 2, 3. And then I have my pet bar that sits right on top of it. I'll move my bartender window over here. And then I have my vehicle bar, so that's going to allow me to kind of get in and out of vehicles when I'm in them. So if you're getting like a siege turret in Wintergrasp or Isle of Conquest or something like that, or a siege engine for a quest, that's your button to get out is going to be right there. Your extra action bar button, so that's going to be for garrison abilities in WoD, and some quests have abilities like that will make use of it. So it's that big middle button that pops up on your screen. So that's just kind of right there. You can actually change the scale of that down. So the extra action bar, let's take the scale, let's put it right down. That's not something that's necessary, but helps save a little bit of real estate on your screen. Bartender is also very useful for doing your keybinds. So if you just press this keybinding button, it opens up your keybinding mode. You can keep your character specific keybinds if you want, or you can make it so different characters can have different binds, depending on if this setting is checked or not. You just kind of scroll over. So like say I'll clear this bind with escape, but I want my fortifying brew to be control, and then one of the buttons on the top of my mouse, which is, it just happens to be K, because there's no chance I'm going to be hitting a bind with K on my keyboard with my left hand, because I'm right-handed. And just logistically, it just makes sense. So yeah, you just click the key that you want it to be. Blizzard is actually putting in, or has put in, a quick keybind mode in their settings here. If you go to keybindings and click quick keybind mode, it's actually right there. It does pretty much the same thing. So that would be your extra action button right there. So you could bind that to something else. But it's pretty much the same thing. Bartender kind of came out with that first. But you just kind of scroll over whatever you want, hit the key while you're scrolled over it, and it will bind it to that key. So that's pretty much it for Bartender. So the next add-on we'll kind of move on to is called Shadowed Unit Frames. So Shadowed Unit Frames is going to be covering kind of my unit frame here in the top left, and then my target, which is, let's say we'll target this guy, and then a target of target. So if I'm targeting myself, then, it's going to kind of be a loop here. So this will be the target of target. So we'll kind of go through those settings real quick. It's not too difficult to set up. There's a few things that are a little bit intricate with it little bit later on, but it's not something that you really need to mess around a whole lot with. So in general, you want to lock the frame so you're not clicking and dragging your target frames all around and everything. You know, if you happen to, you know, when you go to leave your group or something, you know, you can't drag it around by accident, because, you know, that does happen. It does. So you can go to enabled units, and you can check off all of the ones that you want it to show up, because this will replace any unit frame in the whole game. So whether you're in arenas, whether you're in a raid, or whatever it is, you get various different settings that you can set. So you can have your own special window for the main tank or the main assist, for the bosses, for arenas, for battlegrounds, and all that. This is all complete unit frames, packages, you know, that you can kind of set up. But we don't use most of them. The only ones that we actually use for unit frames are me and my pet. So my pet on the monk would be Zwen, or my clones, but in this case it's Zwen. And then you've got your target. So I want to make sure I can see my target there, and I can see my focus target. So say I set you know, a target as focus. So if I set focus, Bagnon has actually encountered an issue. So there's a lot of different issues with add-ons going on right now, but yeah, right now you'll see some of those issues, but right now that's preventing me from setting this target to be my focus target. But that's not usually the case when you go into a battleground or you're going into a raid or dungeon. Usually there are less issues because there's less going on in the world at that point. So the only real difference here is that you're going to want to change your colors probably. You know, you've got your class colors and stuff that you can change, but those are something that you probably want to leave alone. Your text management, you can introduce new tags and everything. But when you go to an individual unit after you enable one, that's when you get into the customization settings for what you really want to see. So you can have your enabled portrait. So it's showing my 3D portrait. So I could show just a class icon here instead of like my character's face. But, you know, it's cool to have the character's face there. You know, just something that, you know, I like. Looks cool to me. And then you can just kind of scroll down. You got enabled chi, so you can enable the, you know, the chi that you've got there. You can go in the tabs here to increase the size of your frame. So if you want to make this bigger, if you want to make it longer, if you want to make it, you know, shorter that way, then you can kind of shrink it, make it bigger, pretty much exactly what you want. So I'm going to remember this number is 66, but you can kind of scale it up and down based on what you want. So we're going to go back to 66 because that's just kind of the setting that I had it at. So then you can kind of go and do the same settings for your target, and pretty much any unit that you actually want to enable. So right here, you know, this is the scale, the height, the width, you know, all the same kind of settings there. But something that you actually might want to look at is the auras, and it's mainly the debuffs. And you can change the size of the icons that display as buffs and debuffs underneath the target. So if I wanted to increase the size of the buffs that are displaying, I can take the icon size and I can just drag that up. And you can also change the amount of buffs and debuffs it shows per row, and the amount of rows that you can actually have, which you won't really have to worry about going over the cap. It's not something that really happens in retail WoW. I know there's a buff cap that people deal with in Classic. This is not the same. So when you go to your icon size there, so I've got 16 there, and I've got, you know, 20 on that one because I wanted to show the debuffs, and, you know, a little bit larger on my enemies than on me and allied targets. You know, just because I wanted to make sure that, you know, I'm able to see the debuffs that are applied and, you know, react accordingly. So then after that, you get your targeted target, your focus target, and your focus target. So typically I don't enable the portraits for my focus targets. It's just not usually worth it. But target of target and your normal target are fine. It's not going to lag down your game or anything like that. It's not going to be a big deal. You can actually also change the font that you have too. So oh, this is another thing real quick too. So this is kind of your text strings, so you can change the base the way that it works. So right now I've got it set to my name, and then if I happen to be AFK, it will show, you know, the words AFK in parentheses, and then, you know, it will show, you know, my name, it'll show my group number, and then on the right hand side text it's going to show my current and maximum HP. So that's just a fun little thing that you can kind of change around with, and it's fun. Let's see, where was the so this is the font and the colors that you can change it to. So I left the colors for all the class colors and resource bars. I left all that alone and left it just kind of be the same. But you can take the textures and you can have whatever you want actually on your bar. So I could change the textures to be like that, like light step. Smooth is something that a lot of people use. You can make it look like the Blizzard stuff, which is kind of like a rounded kind of canister kind of look. Striped, which is very very bright, as I'm kind of noticing. Minimalist is the one that I typically use because it's just kind of class colors, resource colors, nothing that's going to get in my way of seeing what I want to see. So that pretty much covers for shadowed unit frames. So the next thing that we should go over is Neatplates. So Neatplates are your target frames over allies and enemies. So it's going to be pretty different when it comes to different kinds of mobs and player characters and all that. So this is a standard enemy for me. So it just kind of shows the level, shows the HP bar. It shows status text once you start fighting. I'm going to instant kill this in one hit if I hit it. So it's not going to show the HP status text on the bar until it's actually damaged. That's a setting that you can change. You can make the status text show all the time, but it can be kind of disruptive when you're in the middle of a fight. You're trying to keep track of certain things. You really only want to keep track of the status text on your target that you're actually hitting during combat. So that's just a setting that's my preference, but you can change it to be exactly whatever you want. So if you go to /neatplates, whoops, I need to spell it right. Usually helps. So you can change the theme here, and I use neon, but there's a whole bunch of different options here that you can change it around. I'm not going to change it because I don't want to mess with my settings because I just had to set this up all the other day after I deleted my WTF folder when the pre-patch came out and kind of restarted with a blank slate. So pretty much right here, this is kind of what you're looking at. If you're going into PvP, your enemy will show with their class color as their nameplate frame color. So you won't really get confused based on what it is. The only thing is allied players all kind of show up as a light blue. And a lot of people might think that that's that's an enemy mage when it's really an enemy target. You can change that color. I don't. I use the same profile for every single one here. If you scroll down, you can enable and disable cast bars. So when an enemy is casting, it will pop up the bar right next to their nameplate, which we're not really seeing right now, but that's fine. Let's see. What other settings do we got here? So here's where you can show the unit level. So it's showing that this porcupine is level 35, so that's where you're going to see it. You can show a unit title. So if you want to show like a player's title, so it would say Zadian, the Unstoppable Force or Duelist Zadian kind of thing. If you were looking at me there and you see my plate is active, you can decide to show that. But I don't, because you just want to show like the direct player name because the title really doesn't matter, and it just kind of takes up extra screen real estate. So that's something you kind of want to stay away with typically. And then you've got just like a whole bunch of different power bars that you can enable and disable. So I like to show the power bar. This porcupine doesn't have one, but you can see a warrior's rage or a healer's mana or whatever it might be. And that's pretty much where you change that. These are all the different buffs and debuffs that you can actually have show up. So if I were to throw a paralysis on here, it's going to show it right above the the nameplate here, and it's going to show the timer and exactly how long it's going to last, and it shows it again right here on the side there. So that's pretty much what you're looking at there. Let me open it back up, /neatplates, and there's not really a whole lot more to look at other than that. Here's where you can change the scale. You can change your unit filters if you have anything that you want to filter out, because you can actually filter friendly players from being on your nameplates if you desire that. But some people use allied frames, mostly healers, for PvP and Arena. Sometimes in Mythic Plus. I mean, I use it in Mythic Plus. I don't really use it in Raid because when you have a lot of nameplates in a raid, it can be kind of distracting and take too much of your screen real estate, like we were talking about before. It's just not something you want. You can enable health glow over certain bars based on the amount of HP that they've got. You can show the target of the spell on their cast bar. So this is where you change all of the cast bar settings to, kind of whatever you want. You can change the color of the bar when the spell is uninterruptible or when it gets interrupted. But, these are all just kind of the normal default colors. You can enable range indicators, but I don't. So when you enable that, it kind of just like has like this green bar underneath of it. And so it shows that I'm pretty close. But if I move away, it's going to start going kind of yellowish, and it's going to go kind of orange and red. Actually, this one just goes right to red, but you can set it to be progressive. Yeah, scale based on distance. So it's red right now. And so we're going to kind of go in and out, and it's going to kind of scale. And that should just about cover it for Neatplates, because the only other settings here is you can treat your focus as a target or use the Blizzard font. And if you use Chinese number shortening, if that's something that's important to you, which in North American servers technically is usually not handy, but there it is. So that's Neatplates. Sexymap is a very, very simple add-on to go over. So you can kind of just drag it around and do whatever you want if it's not locked. So like typically I keep my minimap locked because I don't want to move it around by accident. So we put it right there. You can actually move anything on your map if you have this add-on. It's just kind of a nice little easy thing to do. The one that I use is called Faded Square, but there's a whole bunch of different ones that have various kind of animations under default presets and user submitted presets. But this is the one that just makes the most sense for me because I like to have a square minimap, and you can actually make it rotate. So when you click this, it rotates the minimap itself instead of rotating your arrow. So technically your arrow always faces north. But typically you want your map to face north, and you want to move yourself is typically how I set it up. And that's all I do for Sexymap setup, to be honest. There's not really a whole lot about it. The next add-on we should go over is Chatter. So this is a simple to use add-on that enables you to copy and paste things in your World of Warcraft game chat, and you can show your timestamps. You can make it so you hover over things, and it will show different items. So like say if I go in S and I were to link a trinket or something like that, then scrolling over that item without having to click it to open up this frame, I can just scroll over it and it will just pop up the tooltip automatically. It doesn't do that for achievements, but I don't think you'd want to do that for achievements. But it's kind of a nice feature to have if it's something that you care about. So I use a few different windows. I use general, combat log, normal, and whispers, because this is kind of the window that I use when I don't want to have general chat and trade chat and local defense and all that kind of spamming me. So this is just guild chat, say, yell, raid chat, party chat, all those kind of things, and whispers. And this one is only whispers. So if I'm talking to people, I can actually just go into that, and that's fine. But that's not actually a part of the add-on. That's just part of default Blizzard UI. But now we'll kind of get into the chatter settings. So something that can be, just a little bit, handy for you is you can prevent the whisper windows from popping up automatically, which is an issue that people are having in this pre-patch right now. So right now, when somebody whispers you, it may open up its own little window and not kind of go in your normal chat windows. So like right here, like sometimes like if that bug was happening to me, I wouldn't be able to see the whispers there, and it would pop up in its own little window here with that one conversation with that one person, and that's not such a great thing to have. I haven't played with this add-on a whole lot, but I like having the timestamps so I can see when people are saying things in the chat, and know how long ago it was that somebody said something. So I can kind of do that based on or I can look at that based on cooldowns and see what people were saying and what people had. Usually that's helpful for duels. I use it for people who kind of whisper me. So it's like how long ago did that person whisper me and I didn't see the message or whatever, so I know how to respond accordingly. There's different things you can do, like you can highlight certain words. So like if someone, for me, if they say Zadian, I'll add that to the list. So if anyone ever says Zadie in the chat, it's going to highlight it for me and make sure that I see it, and it'll kind of grab my attention. But you know, that's essentially all I've kind of used in here. But for player names, you can actually you know, change some of the settings here, which, you know, doesn't really matter a whole lot to me. It's fine. But yeah, so that's kind of chatter for me. And oh, it also kind of changes the bar down below. So kind of here's the you know, just your, it's got a black background, so you can kind of not see you know, the world behind it, so you can see your words a little bit easier. And this is also the ability to copy and paste, so you can just kind of hover, highlight whatever you want, Control C, Control V, it all works. Let me drag this back over here. I need to drag that up just a little bit. Okay, perfect. Lock window. Okay, so the next add-on that we should probably go over is going to be Bagnon. So Bagnon is kind of an ability, not an ability, sorry. Okay, let me restart that. We'll cut that part out. So now let's go over Bagnon. So Bagnon is an add-on that allows you to kind of reorganize or redistribute your loot in your bags to kind of be a more comfortable setup for you. So the things that you want to take a look at are how many different rows and columns you actually want to have on your add-on here. So that's where you change it right here. So right now I've got 12 columns, so this is going to be 12 icons across. So you can kind of shrink the window, because when you have a lot of large bags on your character, by default it kind of goes off of your screen height-wise. So you can add more columns to kind of shrink it up and make it a more manageable size on your screen. So like I said, I use 12, but you can kind of readjust it to be based on what you want. So like right now, it would look like this by default. It's not very good. But you can also, like I said, just kind of rearrange it just like that. Get however many you want. Makes it much easier. You can do a bag break, and that will kind of break it up in bags, but I think that kind of defeats the purpose of using this add-on. So I'm not really going to do that. You can have a background color that you can pick. I usually just leave it, you know, gone by default. You know, just kind of what it is. You can show your money on here. You can show, you know, your bag's toggle button. Let's see, where is the... Yeah, okay. So then you can also, you know, change the settings for the bank. So like right now, if you right-click this this thing down here, it will open up your bank, and you can see all the items that you have in there. And then you use Bag Brother as an add-on that kind of ties in with that. And then you can see everything on your bank, on other characters, and all that. So right now, if I wanted to, I could go see what I have on my alt monk. This is exactly what is in his inventory, and this is what is in that character's bank. Yeah, that's kind of a handy little add-on. Right now, like the currency tracking for like the other currencies is a little bit broken. So I use a different add-on for that called CurrencyTracker, which is the next add-on that we're going to go over. So it's this kind of little add-on right here that I keep down below my my chat window, or my my webcam if you're watching the stream or this video. So you can kind of just right-click it, and it's going to open up all the settings. And there's all these different tracked items and currencies that you can kind of just you know, keep track of here. So say I wanted to know how many marks of honor I've got, I can check that, and it's going to immediately pop up here. So I can keep track of whatever items that I actually want. When I go to currencies, you know, say we're in BFA right now, we're not in the Shadowlands. You know, I want to track my war resources, my Seal of War-Torn Fates, my Coalescing Visions, my Echoes of Nyalotha, and my Titan Residuum. Those would be the most important ones. So then you can kind of resize it based on what you want to track. But right now, I don't really care about tracking those things, because we're going into the Shadowlands pre-patch now, and those are not exactly important currencies for me to track. Some additional settings that you might want to take a quick look at with this add-on are hiding while in combat. So that's on by default. So if I check that and I hit this porcupine, it disappears until I'm out of combat, and then it reappears. And you can do the same for in Battlegrounds. But I want to uncheck that, because I just like to keep it on my screen at all times. I don't really have it disappear when I go in combat. It's not really something I care about. You can hide it while in pet battles, and then you can show the tooltips. And those are pretty much all the settings that I typically use. So when you scroll over them, it's kind of nice. It shows the tooltips. It'll show exactly like, this is the Mark of Honor tooltip. You got your conquest. Pretty much shows them all. If you scroll over the bar itself, like over any of these like these currencies, then it will tell you like all of your currencies that you've got. So like right now, it's showing every single currency that I have on this character for every expansion. So you can kind of see without having to actually open up your currency tab, which it's a little bit messy to look at because it's not separated very well, but it kind of just is what it is. So that's CurrencyTracker. Another add-on, like I just want to mention it. It's just called BadBoy. You don't have to configure any settings with this add-on. It just kind of prevents, like all the spam that you'll see in like trade chat and general chat. Want to sell plus 15 carries and want to sell ahead of the curve and this and that and gold and items, whatever. It kind of gets rid of like all those spam bots for you, so you don't have to actually ignore people and kind of just see it in general. So it's just kind of a nice chat swatter add-on to have. FontDamageChanger is an add-on that I've been using for a little while, and it just kind of lightly changes the font of the damage when you hit things. So like right now, if you look at the the hit damage that I'm doing right now, it's not the Blizzard default UI. It's my own custom font that I use here. So there's not much setup to do there. I mean, you just kind of set it up, pick the font that you want. MapCoords is a nice add-on to have. It's this little yellow thing right here. So it's actually going to show, these are my player coordinates here. And then when you open up your map, it will show at the bottom here your cursor coordinates and your player coordinates. So like we're seeing here, I'm at 3929, but my cursor is following around wherever I'm at. So when you're on Wowhead and you're trying to find something, it's a very handy thing to have to know exactly where on the map you need to go to get something. So I can say, oh, I need to get something at 6270. So if I go all the way over to 62 and then go down to 70, 6270 right there. Click away marker. There it is. There. I can set that. That's where I need to go. Very handy add-on to have for that kind of thing. Handynotes is something that you can use when you're trying to do rares for certain assaults or whatever it might be. I've currently got my assaults turned off because I'm doing like a bunch of like Siege of Orgrimmar and Vortex Pinnacle farming and everything. But it will kind of show tooltips over like rares in different zones and show you like what they drop. So like say if you scroll over the Ashenvale Chimera on the map, it will like show where its location is. It's kind of like if you go to Pandaria, you go to Kun Lai, and you see Shah of Anger. It's kind of a tooltip like this, but it will show the mount that it drops, if it's like a mount rare or like whatever it might drop. So it's just kind of a handy thing to have, kind of handy notes. So the next part of this video is going to be kind of going over the PvP add-ons that I use, and that's the question I get the most. What add-ons do I use for PvP, specifically that kind of help me get the edge on the other players? So something that I like to go over first is usually Omnibar, because Omnibar is obscenely helpful when it comes to tracking cooldowns of what your enemies are using. So if, say, a rogue kicks you and you're a caster, you can see how long until he has his kickback up. If you you hit a mage and he has to use his ice block, it's going to pop up an ice block icon, and it will kind of do like the normal cooldown timer. And as soon as it disappears from your bar, it will that means that player has that ability back and the cooldown has expired, so he can use his ice block again. So it's just a helpful tracker. You can actually track any ability in the game. It doesn't matter what class. It doesn't matter if, what spec they are, what ability they're using. You can track it if you want. You can go in the settings and track absolutely any ability. The next add-on isn't something that you're really going to be able to see on my screen at the moment. It's called SArena. And SArena allows you to move and disable the default arena frames, and that's something that we're going to get into when it comes to Gladius, because Gladius is something that we use to replace our unit frames in arenas for the enemy targets. So normally I have my raid style target frames over here on my left side, and then we have Gladius. So if I were to do a slash Gladius here, then you can actually you can test the frames. See where's the button to test it right now? Let's see. Announcement. Might just be like /Gladius test. There it is. So this is Gladius, where we're showing our enemy frames here. So this would be in place of the Blizzard default frames when you go into an arena. So it's going to show the diminishing return tracker. It's going to show the ability that they've used. So like this mage will be in Ice Block right now. It shows their PvP trinket cooldown, which is what this is. And then it shows what they have. So that'd be Remove Curse. It shows their Purge cooldowns and all that good stuff. So that's something that you might want to take a look at if you're interested in doing arenas, or it's really kind of its only use is in arena, but it's something to keep track of things a little bit more easily, and it works very well. So I'm going to do a quick /Gladius here. So this is something that you can change, the DR tracker, so you can show the cooldown spiral. So that means that it's going to show the spiral and the number on the cooldown, so you can see exactly how long it's going to be before the diminishing return expires, which is kind of a nice thing to check. And then you've got your dispel. You can do the same thing with your cooldown spiral. So if you have that unchecked, then it's just going to show the number, and it's not going to do the spiral. But it's something that's pretty easy to kind of see. The health bar, you can change the colors, the names, the text, the font, whatever you want. I usually leave it a default for Gladius. It's something that I don't like to mess with because it kind of just does what it wants to do anyway. But the other useful part of Gladius is actually the announcements. So when you go into the announcements tab, it's got resurrection, new enemies, drinking, spec detection, low health, dispel. So this is what you see when you go into an arena and a character automatically says Unholy Death Knight, Frost Mage, whatever it might be. And this will announce it in the chat. So the only thing I like to announce in the chat is when a target is drinking or rezzing, because I've got other ways of knowing when they trinket, which is this little window right here. So I'll know what their trinket cooldown is and when they'll have it back. Their dispel, so you can announce when somebody casts a dispel, but that would be friggin' annoying. That's a whole lot. New enemies and spec detection are the thing I was talking about before when you join arena and it tells you like who's on the other team in there. So I usually disable that because it's not something you really need to announce. It's something that's going to show up in your frames anyway, and like I said, just not too important. Low health is another one that's on by default that I turn off because I don't really need to know when someone's low. I'll be able to see it on the Gladius frame itself, and I'm usually pretty on top of who's low anyway because I'm usually dealing the damage because I'm a Windwalker Monk. So that's Gladius. That kind of covers that one. So we'll do a quick /Gladius hide, and then I'll hide the window until we get into an actual arena, and it will pop up every time you enter an arena. The next add-on is called Bigdebuffs. So say we're going over here to Mr. Porcupine. We can cast this in-cap. It's going to show on their unit frame here. And if I'm stunned, it will show on my unit frame, kind of what's going on. It'll show the cooldown timer, or the countdown, based on how long your ability is going to last. And yeah, it's just kind of an easy way to see CCs and different effects that are important on your character. It doesn't really have any customization set up. It just kind of shows them by default, but you can change the amount of buttons that it does show. So if we go to Bigdebuffs, then you go to spells, you can change the spells that it will show for every single class. So yeah, that's pretty much all it is. Because these are like immunities, spell immunities, crowd control. So these are all the things that would normally pop up. And so usually it will show it on the nameplate, and it will show it on their target unit frame as well, like right there. The next add-on I guess I want to talk about is called GladiatorLoSA. You guys have, usually known what this is, because when I'm in doing battlegrounds or arenas, whatever, there's a voice that's kind of speaking in the background there, and it's saying like Ice Block, Deep Freeze, A-Bomb. It's saying it out loud. It's got an audio file, and it's telling you exactly what abilities other players are pressing on the enemy team, and letting you know. So like instead of having to watch your Omnibar and seeing like, oh, a rogue vendetta, it's gonna say vendetta with an audio file for you, so you're gonna know exactly when that happens. So it's helpful. Not everybody uses it. A lot of people use Omnibar instead, and I use both. I mean, sometimes I just turn it off when I'm just farming battlegrounds because it's not something I really want to keep track of in battlegrounds. And Omnibar is kind of a pain in the ass to keep track there too, but just something that's there. LoseControl is an interesting add-on. So essentially, it displays the duration of CC effects on your character. So when you do get stunned up, it will just kind of show like a countdown timer of exactly how long your CC is going to last on you until you're going to be out, and until you gain control back. And that's pretty much all that add-on is. Another add-on that I use for in Arena is called Arenateamtracker. So up next to your party frames up here, so it would show your arena team. It's gonna show all of their big cooldowns right next to it in their icons, and it will show the cooldowns. It'll show me when they use it, and what they used, and it's gonna just kind of let me know. It's like watching the Arena World Championship series on Twitch or YouTube, wherever it's gonna end up being. Right now, it's on YouTube. And it will kind of show all the cooldowns that they have at their disposal and the cooldown. So that's something that's pretty handy. The other add-ons that we've got here are going to pertain to Mythic Plus and rating. So details is kind of what we have going on for showing our damage stats. So details is a handy add-on that you can right-click and you have all of these different options to see all of these different statistics, and you can show them for overall data for a whole dungeon or one specific fight. And so like say I want to take a look at damage done, it's going to do a breakdown. So I did 32,000 damage, and or I guess I did 271,000 damage, and I did 32,000 DPS, which was 100% of the target's HP, 100% of the damage done to that target. But you can also easily show healing done. Not that it's going to show anything for me because I didn't do any healing in that fight. But you can go here, and this is going to show a fight in Battle for Gilneas. So I did a fair bit of healing here with probably my reverse harm and my vivifies. But DPS, it's going to show the DPS that I did, and you go to damage done, which is usually one of the more important stats. These are the ones that people kind of really pay attention to. But you can kind of see dispels. You can see deaths. So like right in here, I used my detox, which was my dispel to get rid of the rogue's deadly poison. And so it's just a handy add-on for showing all of your stats based on your fights that you're doing. And it's more useful in PvE than anything else, but I wasn't really doing a whole lot of PvE this morning. So like right now, it would kind of be on Arachnoid Harvester. So for showing the amount of damage done, I was the only player in my party because it was just me. It doesn't really count people outside of your party because it doesn't want to kind of confuse the group situation if you're all hitting target dummies or something. All right, so when you open up the options panel for details, it's going to be able to allow you to customize the window in any way that you want. You can show multiple different bars. You can show the DPS, and you can also create a new window to show the healing done or the damage done or whatever it is that you want to see. That might be a little bit more important for a raid leader to be able to track both DPS and healing and make sure the people are doing their job and all that kind of thing. You can change your text font here. So like right now I've been using forced square. I've been using that on my shadowed unit frames. I'm using that on my Neatplates. I'm using that pretty much on all my add-ons that you can change the font. Just kind of make it even and the same across the whole board. You can change the profiles and the skins that you've got. So right now the skin, I'm using the ElvUI frame style. So it's just gonna show up like most Windows would on ElvUI. But there are a ton of actually really good ones here. Like if I use Foursquare, which is the font that I typically use right now, then it's kind of just like a different looking one. But I prefer the ElvUI one myself. What's the ElvUI style too? Yeah, it's a little bit darker. That's kind of what that is. So I'm gonna stick with this one. This is the one that I like. That's what I'm gonna use. The next add-on is Deadly Boss Mod. So that's going to be an add-on that you don't have to set up at all. You just download it, and it's going to give you warnings and timers based on what's happening in different team fights and in different raid encounters or dungeon encounter. So when you're on a boss, say you're on Rathian. Say you're doing Rathian, the first boss in Ny'alotha. He's gonna do an ability called Gale Blast that's gonna, have all the orange fire around him, and it's gonna blow all the players back and all that. It'll show a timer. It'll say 30 seconds left whenever he's getting ready to cast it, so you know exactly when the mechanics are gonna happen, so you can get ready for them and be ready. It also shows timers for PvP, so when you're at Battlegrounds, it will show how long until a base caps, or how long until a team wins based on the current point accrue system. So, like, based on how many bases you have, it'll judge what the end score will be, and you can ping that in your chat by shift clicking them. It also allows you to show countdown timers for your pull timers, which is important for most raid leaders and tanks, because when you're going to pull a boss, it will show that orange text countdown timer. I'm sure you guys are familiar. It's a very popular add-on. Most people use it. Great add-on. Shows you exactly what's going to happen, so you can be ready and get the easiest chance at getting loot and killing the boss in your fights. The next add-on that we're going to cover is called GTFO. This add-on kind of has like an audio that will play whenever you're standing in the fire, or you're standing in a mechanic that you shouldn't be, or if you get hit by something you shouldn't be, say like a tail swipe by Rathian or something, it will go boop, or it will go if you're standing in fire, and it will do that until you get out, just to kind of make sure that you know that you're kind of in something that you shouldn't be. So like I said, if you're in Gale Blast, it'll go boop when you get knocked out, and you'll just make this big crazy noise, and it's just something that's pretty useful in that regard. Other than that, there's just a couple quick little add-ons that we want to cover, and the first one's going to be kind of simulation craft, and I will open Raid Bots, which is the simulator that this kind of goes along with. So this is gonna SimC is gonna open up kind of a character stats kind of page, and it's automatically going to highlight everything. So you just hit Control C, and then I'll show you on my other monitor here. This is going to run simulations for what your character might do for DPS. So if you do a quick sim and you paste in all of that information in here and run a quick sim, it's going to tell me exactly how much DPS it thinks that I should be doing on any one fight, and it will kind of optimize and break down exactly what you've got going on. So right now it thinks that I should be doing 2,838 DPS, which is actually lower than what I'm actually doing. So I think it's going to be a little bit inaccurate for what Shadowlands and the pre-patch is actually like. But here's the complete damage breakdown. It showed 18% of my damage across this whole simulated fight was my Fist of Fury. My Rising Sun Kick was 12%. Say I did 34 Rising Sun Kicks. I did 17 Fist of Fury. So this would be like a normal raid boss fight, which it uses patchwork as the default, because that's the just kind of the default thing that it uses. And it would show the buffs that I would have active, so it shows all raid buffs, and it shows my augment rune, my flask, my food buff, and all that kind of thing that would apply to the target and kind of affect all of these breakdowns and all these stats. So it's a useful add-on to have if you care about optimizing your character, because you can also use this to, if we go back here to the main page, you can go on Top Gear and paste that in and click Find Top Gear, and it will tell you all of the top pieces of gear, even in the Droptimizer, where to get the best gear for your class and what you need to do. The only thing is that you just want to load the SimC into here to kind of get that breakdown, because it takes all of your character stats, it takes all of your trinkets that you have, whether you're in-game, or whether they're in your bag or whether they're on your person. So it will compare these trinkets to any trinkets that I have in my inventory, which is going to show, the Forbidden Claw, the Harlan's Odin Dice, the Insignia, the Dragon Scale. It's going to compare all of those things and tell you exactly what you need to equip to be dealing the most damage. It's mostly a PvE add-on, but it does help in PvE a little bit when it comes to your damage. You can kind of just see what you need to be doing for the most damage, as long as you don't have to worry about your survivability or anything like that. That's a very handy add-on there. So the last one that we kind of need to go over is Raider.io. So Raider.io is a system that players use to kind of judge a player's skill for Mythic Plus and rating. So if I open up this tab here, it's going to show, this was my my score from the last season. So I had a score of 2017, which is a fairly decent score. It's not someone I'm not someone that plays in like Mythic Plus Invitationals or anything like that. Those players would be more in the 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 kind of range. But they're doing keys so far beyond anyone that a 2,000 score is someone who does 15, 16, 17s constantly and just times them and is a decent player. It also shows your raid experience. So because I'm scrolling over my unit frame up here, if you look on the bottom right half of my screen here, it's going to show exactly what my IO is. So my IO score is 2017, and then I'm 3 out of 12 in my Mythic Nyalotha, and I'm 12 out of 12 in Heroic Nyalotha. But on the window here, when I press I, right up here, it shows exactly the breakdown of how many times I've killed each boss. It's not exactly accurate for me because I wasn't using the add-on the whole season because I wasn't really too into Raider IO, but eventually I got it. So I have got many more kills in Heroic. This is probably accurate for Mythic, but not for Heroic because I've cleared Heroic an obscene amount of times, especially on my alts and everything. So it's kind of an add-on that's used to judge player skill, and it helps you when you're forming groups so you don't take players that kind of got boosted or take players that are not ready yet for the content, because when you're doing timed content, it's something that's important to make sure that you actually finish your dungeon in time and can complete it that way. All right, guys, thank you so much. This has been my Shadowlands kind of UI guide. If you have any additional questions, make sure you ask in the comments. Make sure you ask in the stream chat, which I'll be also linking right below. You can also tweet me on Twitter, and I'll answer your question as soon as I can. Thanks, guys. I hope you have a great day. Peace out.